this is not uniquely South African. I know Paul Graham wrote an article about it as well. If you're gonna go try and get a corporate to be one of like your early clients, you're gonna die before they sign anything, before you even get the money into your bank account. So yeah, in the beginning, what we did was
welcome everybody to episode 27, How Would You Build It? I'm really excited today. Rainier, welcome back. How you doing?
Ja, thanks Bobby, lekker.
Yeah. And Bubu, second time around. This time we're going to release nicely. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us again.
no worries, man, no worries. Now I'm good on yourself, dude.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good. You know, hustling along as we were talking about off record. But yeah, really excited to chat to you about your journey as a startup founder in the EdTech space, or in the recruitment space. But I think for everybody to kind of understand where you're coming from, can you just tell us the elevator pitch of Jobox?
No, I definitely can, but I love the fact that you mentioned EdTech because for the longest time we called ourselves EdTech and
Oh,
people were
really?
like, why? And it's because, yeah, because you need something buzzy. If like, like
Trendy.
EdTech is lots of funding, fintechs are funding. No
Oh,
one
so you're
was
building
funding
an AI
RecruiTech,
business
so we're like,
now.
yeah, we're EdTech. You have to go whichever one is on trend so that people can pay attention to you. It's like whenever you're like applying for things and like, I mean, the people who listen here, if you're a founder, you know that if a month has gone past and you haven't applied to some competition or something, like, are you really a founder? You'd always have to like tick the little boxes, and we always used to tick like EdTech, but now we like, okay, cool, we go other, and we just say RecruiTech because I think we've gotten to the point now where we really know what like Jobox does and like what does Jobox do. So we're an early talent discovery ecosystem built to connect students, universities, and employers. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to improve graduate employability. We're trying to give students the skills that they need to enter, stay in, and eventually we really want the students to be able to thrive in the world of work because about 2 out of 5 graduates graduate and then they sit around for like 2 years and they can't get a job. So we're trying to help that.
Hmm.
And how do we do this? So I mentioned the word ecosystem, which is I've got a love-hate relationship with that word. So within the ecosystem, employers, they're part of it. They get access to vetted, diverse, and affordable talent. Students, they get access to work experience opportunities. That's the thing that we kind of like realize that this is what students are missing. They don't have work experience, but then they run into that problem of, I'm applying for a job, and the job says you need to have work experience, and the student is like, how am I supposed to get the work experience? So we were like, okay, cool. While you're a student, get a job. We'll help you get a job. Once you've graduated, we'll also help you get a job. And the really key part of this ecosystem are the universities themselves. So we actually work with the universities. And what we give the universities is data. So throughout every single point of a student getting hired, there's like really interesting data insights that are being collected. And then we then build reports based on this data and we send it back to the university so they can start improving the employability of their graduates. So like they can learn that their second year BCom law students are applying to these kinds of jobs. This is how far they're making it into the vetting process, or this is how far this is like, or they have bad CVs, whatever it may be, whatever the data tells them, then that specific university can be like, oh, this is what like we can do. Hence why in the beginning we were like, we're EdTech, but now we're like, no, we're in RecruiTech. That's what we do.
Yeah, yeah. But I love it. Data driven, right? Everyone promises and everyone says they're data driven, but it sounds like you're actually getting it right. So well done.
No, thanks, man. Yeah, and the data aspect gives it a little bit of like sexiness because in the beginning I was just like, oh, it's just a marketplace. Then we're like, it's a marketplace, but for
Yeah,
data. That's when people's
yeah.
eyes like actually like light up when you explain what we do.
Yeah, but we want to get your input on being a founder in South Africa because we know it's a tricky thing to do. And what is your view on becoming a founder in South Africa in the current climate?
Man, it's not even the current climate. So I've been involved in startups since like 2015, 2016, because we founded Jobox in 2015, and it was an extreme sport then, and it's still an extreme sport now. And I actually don't even know if it's gotten any better, which is quite sad. I don't know if it's gotten any better. It is probably the most difficult thing that I've personally had to go through. I haven't, gotten married. I don't have kids to raise. So for me, out of everything that I've done, trying to build a startup has been by far the most challenging, and trying to build it in South Africa has been even more, because I've got friends in other startup ecosystems, guys in Europe, guys in Japan, guys in the States, guys in Australia. And, you kind of hear about their experiences and you're like, whoa, that sounds nice. That's not what happens here. And there's like a bunch of reasons as to why that's the case, from the access to funding to the difficulties that we face in trying to build anything here. And, you're told, don't build this, go and build that. Then you go try and build that, and it still doesn't work because everyone says go B2B. That's what everyone says, because B2C in South Africa doesn't really work because we've got like a ridiculously small middle class, right? And so you're told go build B2B. And then you go try build for B2B. And then you run into the issue of like, B2B is nice on paper, but B2B is actually ridiculously difficult, because you've got the B2B is kind of like split into like, I think like three different like sections. You've got the B2B, the startups, or the small businesses. Those are like, relatively speaking, easy to reach out to. They don't want to pay for anything though, because they don't have the money. Then on the other side, you've got the large enterprises. And those large enterprises have got all the money in the world. But there's a certain company that we've been working with, and I'm still waiting to get that. I'm still waiting to get that invoice paid. I'm still waiting for, and it's been months. And other companies, like we spoke with them for like almost like a year and a half, and literally nothing happened. And not at the fault of the people that we were working with. They were all like, yeah, we want this to happen. But because of how large the organizations are, nothing happens. Then there's that beautiful sweet spot, like the guys in the middle. These are like the guys who are really, really big. They're not listed yet. They're not like multinationals. They're making tons of money, but it is nigh on impossible to reach them, because you don't know how to reach them. They're not on LinkedIn. They're not on like, it's just, I don't know. You don't even know how to reach them. But those are the guys that you need to target, and that's how B2B starts making sense. But then you've got to balance. If you've raised funding, you've got to try and balance, okay, I've got my runway, I've got my investor, targets to reach, and you just like, just building a startup here is just very, very difficult. Trying to balance all those things. I do have like a little bit of a contrarian belief, and maybe I'll get like shot down for saying this, but in all honesty, like, don't build a startup here. Like, just don't. Like, but if you want to build a startup, do it, but just really be prepared for what's going to happen. It's going to be a slog for many, many, many years trying to get it to where it needs to get to. And also, sorry, like last thing, don't be like Bubu. Bubu was an idiot. Bubu worked for a year, and he thought that it would be really cool to quit his job and start a startup with absolutely no savings and nothing. And so don't be like Bubu.
Bubu's been
Don't
eating
go and just
noodles
jump.
for 5 years.
Yeah. Oh, don't be like Bubu. Like, honestly, if I could go back in time, I still would do startups, because I'm a masochist. I love this stuff. Like, I absolutely love. I love it. Like, as much as I'm like, don't do it. There's nothing in the world that brings me more joy than doing what we do. But if I could go back in time, I would say to 26-year-old Bubu, like, dude, listen here. Just stay in corporate for like 10 years. Just suck it up, build your connections, learn more about the problems that can be solved within the spaces that you're working in. And once you've done that, once you've built your savings, once you've got the knowledge, then be like, okay, cool, I'm going to go try to do something. But keep your job while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Just do it on the side. Do it on the side. And then eventually you'll be able to get there. Because, that's, don't do it.
But it's this difficult thing, right? Because I see on the one hand side it makes sense to build up the skill and the deep knowledge about our industry, and also build up some savings in corporate. But you know how it goes, Bubu. We get those golden handcuffs, the GTI and the flat and the overseas holidays and all of those things. And then, all of a sudden you have some kids, and then it's just impossible to start a startup, right? So it's this thing. You also need the naivety of being young and do it. I mean, remember when I was in my 20s, I'm also like, how difficult can this be? I mean, I know what I'm doing, like, and then you try and get your first customer, and you're like, wow, everybody's saying no or just ghosting you. Like, this is really tough. So, what is it with South Africans and
But
ghosting?
you
By
know
the way,
what's
I think
worse?
we should stop doing that.
Yeah, that would be
But
nice.
like Renier, you know what's worse than being ghosted though? The worst for me is being led on,
Yeah,
and
and
you're
then
stuck
ghosted.
in this like perpetual
People, too nice.
yes. Oh, like you're stuck, like, and you're telling your investors, like, no, we had another follow-up meeting. They're still keen. Next month, yeah, then we had another one, and then another one, and then another one. Like, the best possible thing that can happen to you as a founder is actually getting like a solid no, or
Yeah,
just
Mm,
like them ghosting you. Actually, it's actually the
mm,
best thing that can happen, because
yeah,
they're death by meetings.
yeah.
yeah.
You will be death by meetings, death by documentation. Even when you're like, okay, cool, it's successful, let's put you onto the vendor list. Oh, that process still takes forever.
Yeah,
Guys,
good
I
luck.
Um,
promise you, I do have fun running a startup. I promise you, it's not all doom and
So Bubu,
so yeah.
if this is the reality of South African startup space, right? So if we're
Mm,
saying cool, it's really tough. We don't have a market. A lot of people actually say, we don't have enough funding. I mean, I actually disagree with that. I think we don't have a big enough market. Like if the market was bigger, like I know there's tons of people that would fund stuff that launches into a market that can work. And I mean, to that point, sometimes I see people that go, they don't follow Y Combinator or whatever. They just sit about solving like one little problem, make a little bit of money from it, and then 15 years later, they've got a really nice, profitable business, and it's a success. But it's not the startup way. It's almost like the, spoeg and pluck, put it together
mm.
with duct tape way, and eventually, you figure out how to make this thing work. It's that's very unconventional in my experience to build successful businesses, mostly in South Africa.
Mm.
yeah, like it definitely is. So this weekend, I went on a hike with one of my co-hosts for my podcast, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and we had a really, really good chat while we were hiking, and we were having an honest conversations with ourselves around like what does it mean to be a founder, and should we start redefining what success means. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, Rainier, to your point, I think what's happened is that, and this is, I can't claim this is all his. A lot of us have like sniffed that startup cocaine, and we are addicted to wanting to raise round after round after round and build a business and exit within 3 years, because that's like what we're being told what we need to do. And unfortunately,
Mm.
here in South Africa, we yeah, we love looking at YC. We love looking at like these textiles, all these kinds of things. And, we look at the founders and that's what it looks like they've been able to do within a year, within 6 months or whatever. They were able to raise like hundreds and millions of rands equivalent.
Mm.
And anytime you think about, hey, what if I were to sit down and build a sustainable company that is able to self fund? And then if we need to raise funding, we'll go raise funding. But the primary objective of what we're trying to do is to build not necessarily like a crazy profitable company, but a company that is like really able to grow by itself, grows within, it takes longer to grow, yes, but it grows within its means. That for some reason just doesn't seem as sexy. It's because we're addicted. We want to be able to be that founder that did that. I wanted to be that founder that did that. I'm not going to
Mm.
lie. Like when I first started doing all of this, I wanted to be, that founder, that Forbes 30 under 30, all that kind of stuff. I don't
Do
qualify
you think
anymore,
it's
30
the
now, but
American content creators feeding us this cocaine, this startup cocaine? Because they've got a very different world, but we're so addicted to listening to what they have to say, and we're getting the wrong message. Because that's the thread. I'm constantly with all the guests that we talk to. I mean, just the other day, Rene, we were talking about define, just exactly as Bubu said, define what success means to you. Maybe it doesn't mean having this global product, and it's just something small, and be okay with that, because that seems to be a trend that's coming through.
do you know how hard it is to be okay with it though, man? It took me
Mm,
like months, months and months and months to be like to myself, you know what? I really do think Jobox can be incredibly successful. I really do think it can be. And I think we can play a role in solving this like massive problem. I'm not like, I don't know what word to use, stupid enough to believe that as Jobox alone we can solve youth unemployment in this country. Like, there's no way. The problem is too vast, it's too big. We need everyone to come and play a role with it in order to be able to do that. But to not be like, okay, cool, we may not take this company and be it global and scaling and solving and like, that was really, really difficult to sit down and be like, okay, cool, maybe that's not what we're going to do. But once you and your co-founders sit down and you're able to be like, okay, well, guys, I don't think we could do that, but I really do think we could build a company that is able to create generational wealth, a company that is actually able to solve the problem, that's able to do right by the people that first came in the beginning. It's a tough pill to swallow, but once you swallow it, you start seeing things differently. And you're able to start really going and tackling this thing. Yes, you're still stressed out. I'm still stressed out, not every single day, but most of the time I'm still stressed out about what we're doing. I run a business. Like, you take your work home with you, but you just think and you see things differently. And you're more focused on, okay, cool, guys, let's maybe not try and burn through cash for the sake of burning through cash. Let's actually be quite we'll be quite careful around how are we spending our money, what are we spending our money on, how are we growing, what are we growing. Okay, cool, guys, what is cash flow like? Oh, cash flow. The most important thing about running a business, but you never hear anyone talking about cash flow. The only thing you hear about is people talking about, let's go raise that next funding. What's your valuation? Like, no one will sit down and be like, what's your cash like? Like, are you guys default dead or default alive? That's not what's spoken about here. And I think we're drinking that Kool-Aid, Bobby. Like, we are being on LinkedIn, we're being on TikTok, and we're seeing all these influences, and unfortunately, it's influencing us the wrong way. It's not real. It is not real.
So, Bubu, what have you done as a
the
founder to look after your burn rate and focus on cash flow? Like, can you give some tips to somebody that's starting to find traction on their startup and maybe they've got funding, a little bit of funding that they were able to get? How should they look after that cash that they've got?
So I think another mistake that I did was, and it's funny, we did this mistake more than once, and we thought we had learned from the mistake, but only the third time I was like, no, actually. So as I mentioned, we started Jobox like when we were still varsity students, like in 2015, and we read the Lean Startup, and we were like, oh, the Lean Startup said you must have an MVP. So in our heads, an MVP was a platform technology that was working. So we spent a year building the crappiest platform you can ever imagine. It worked. And we were ridiculously proud of what we built. And we should be, and we should have been. We were varsity students. We built like a tech platform that was connecting students and businesses. It was like the coolest thing. But that platform was very buggy, it was very broken, and we were so obsessed with building the platform, we actually didn't think about building our business. And then we shut down Jobox for a couple of years because we graduated, and your parents were like, "Is this going to pay your bills?" And we're like, "No." So we had to shut it down. Well, we had to shut it down. We had to, get a little bit real about life. And then we were invited to an accelerator program in 2019. And by the time we got to the accelerator program, I had started another startup. I'd attended like a 500 startups program, and I was like, I know everything you can know about startups. I'm the hot stuff. I can do whatever. And Bobby, you cannot believe what is the first thing we said we were going to do, guys. Let's build a platform, but this time we're not going to build it to be too complicated. That's what we thought we needed to do. So we were like, no, we need to get a CTO, we need to get devs, we need to get funding so we can be able to, hire a team out to build this thing. But then we're like, no, we're not making the same mistake because last time we didn't speak to users, like whatever. We were still idiots. And only when Jobox almost died, Jobox nearly died. In 2021, Jobox nearly died. We had no money left, we had nothing, and we were like, guys, we need to shut this thing down. And only then did we realize that we can build Jobox without needing any code. So we were lucky, right? We were a marketplace. And now this applies to people who are not in deep tech. This piece of advice I'm going to give. Jobox was built off Google Forms, Notion, and Airtable. And with that, we were able to raise our last round of funding that we raised. We didn't have working tech. But because we realized that, guys, before you build your MVP, you actually need a POC. You need a proof of concept. You need to actually prove to the world that, guys, my idea works. Here's evidence that it works. Once we've got that evidence, now it's like, okay, can you give us funding so we can build on top of this? Or now we can start building the platform or whatever it may be. So the biggest piece of advice I can give to anyone who is trying to start a startup, first, prove your concept. Before you go hire any developer, before you go take a bunch of money and throw it in there, before you even try to raise venture funding, because I actually promise you're not going to raise any funding if you don't have a platform. I have problems with that, but you're not going to raise any funding. They want to see the tech. Go and prove that your concept works. Once you've proven that your concept works, once you've been able to actually get revenue, not just users. I know there was this other AI startup that's just raised from Andreessen Horowitz, but the use case is a little bit different. They will raise like no revenue, but if you look at like their stats, their monthly active users, blah, 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 that stuff look great. But go and actually get paid. Because it's one thing having like a letter of intent or someone who's like, I'm key. Go get actual money into your bank account. Once you've done that, you've proved your concept. Then go build your tech. So if I could go back to old Bubu, I'd be like, bro, just use Google Forms. Use Google Forms. See if this thing works. And now we've got like a very interesting product culture or thesis that we use. Before we build anything now, we literally go and say, okay, cool, can I build this in a hacky way? Using like no-code tools and low-code tools, whether it be Glide, whether it be software, whatever it is. We go build that, then we take that out and show it to people, get people to use it. And if people are like, okay, cool, this is great, then we're like, okay, cool, developers, go and put time into actually making this thing work for us, rather than just trying to build for the sake of building. Yeah, man, like you just fall into this trap. And that's why we've got this trap of, I need funding because I need developers. Because a lot of the time, it's not us people that can do the development who come up with the startups in South Africa. Yes, in the States, most of the time, like the people were engineers first. Even if they weren't the greatest engineers, they were engineers first. Here, from what I've seen, it really hasn't been the case. A lot of South African founders don't know how to write a single line of code.
Exactly.
But it's also, Bubu, what I've seen is people default to thinking about the product, right? Because the product is the tangible thing. It's like something I'm going to show my mom I'm working on. It's something I can touch and feel, right? But the stuff, and I mean to your point, like people should actually spend days, weeks, months on the strategy around the business model, with particular focus on how does this thing make money? Like how are you designing your payment terms to be cash flow positive? How are you, because those things actually matter. But I think there's two parts. The one part is it's kind of boring and unseen, well, to a lot of people, right? But I think the other part, which I think is a very important one, is I don't think it's explained or trained well enough in South Africa. Like a lot of people, most founders don't know what they don't know. So they think the thing you should be doing is you should be building your product, right? Where you should be actually figuring out how's this thing going to work. Like, and I've actually, Brian Balfour was at HubSpot and he did this 4 fits model. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's something that founders can check out. And it's actually, it doesn't talk only about product market fit, it talks about market model fit and channel fit, how all of these different 4 parts that make up your product actually can make it a success, right? And iterating around that thing is so useful, because as you go and learn more things about your product, you actually realize, it's not going to work the way I anticipated. Now you have to rework that part, right? Now you have to re-envision it. Now, if you spend a freaking R1 million building a piece of tech, and that's the only money you had, like, I mean, geez, now you have to spend another $1 million to correct all the mistakes you've had. Like, it's going to be a long road before you see any kind of return on that. So yeah, I think
Bubu's showing a lot of
the
scar
angle
tissue
should be
there.
business model.
Rainier, where were you 2 years ago, man? No, but like seriously, like we spent the longest time trying to build something that the market didn't want. We had convinced ourselves that we had done user interviews, that we had spoken to users. We did the work. I
Yep.
remember in like the space of like 2 weeks, I must have spoken to like over 30 people. And we did the work. We spoke to the users and the users told us what they wanted to build. But users don't necessarily also know exactly how to articulate what they want to build. And so
No.
you can like go and try and build the thing that you think they're saying they wanted to build. And then you give it to them and they're just like, no, this is not what I said. So we spent like, it must have been like over a year, man, building like a student freelancing platform, only to come back and realized that we were, and I kid you not, like this is in the company, we always joke about it. We were making 50 Rand revenue a month with this whole student freelancing thing. And we were seeing some other clients continuously use our students. And we're like, wait, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you continuously using the student? And they said to us, I'm not going to hire another student freelancer. I hired the student freelancer and they were great. I'm not going to go hire a different one. I'm just going to keep on working with this guy
Yeah,
that I've
yeah.
hired. I'll pay you guys, but I'll just keep on working with them. And we're like, wait, hold
Mm.
on. Is that what you want? Like, you just want someone, and we were like, oh.
It's the
So we
same with
spent
Sweet
like a
Stuff,
year
right?
building like we literally spent a year building a very, very, very bad student freelancing platform. But off platform, we have built like a really great tool that helps you discover really good talent. And only then we were like, oh guys, what we're building is a discovery platform. We're building like this way for you to be able to discover talent. And it took us so long to get there because no, I think the part of us was like arrogant in saying like, no, this is what we wanted to continuously building. And also there was a part of us that was like, we'd been able to raise like a small bit of funding. And we thought, no, our investors want us to see building this thing. But we we were lucky and we had like really great group of investors. And we sat down with them and we were like, guys, I think this is what we need to do. And they were like, yeah, that makes sense. Go for it. And thank goodness we were able to do that because now here we are, a few years later, still thriving, still surviving, and I can't wait to see the heights we're going to be able to reach. But it took us so long to get here,
Mm. I really
so
like
long to
that
get here.
concept though of a discovery thing. So, you know, like if you just think about the whole recruitment process, it's like that chicken and egg, like job and then find the candidates and then it's a whole, here's a discovery. I actually really like that. So like, can you explain like what is it that, that the B2B clients are looking at in this discovery methodology?
So hiring, and I think a lot of like B2B startups are in this kind of like space. We just make the schlep easier.
Okay.
That's honestly like what we're here to do. So as a founder, and I had experienced this myself, hiring sucks.
Mm.
You've got the job and you've got your job spec, which is great, but
Mm-hmm.
there's still a whole process that you have to go through there. You still have to like get all the CVs into your inbox. Then you have to go through all the CVs. And once you've even gone through the CVs, now you have to decide who do I want to like interview out of this. And once you've done that, now you have to decide, okay, cool, how am I going to interview them? How am I going to reach out to them? And then after that, you have to
Assessments.
figure out how am I going to offer them the contract. Like that whole process is it's a schlep. You can do it, but it's an absolute schlep and it really, really sucks. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's when we realized that the part that we've taken in order like by building this thing makes that whole process just really all we always say to our clients the only thing you need to do is show up and look pretty. We'll take care of like the rest of it. We will go so that just chatting a little bit about the platform and how it works. You go into Jobox, you log in, sign up, create your profile, create your job. It will then blast this thing out to all 20 of our university partners across the country. And then all the students come and apply to the job, but they don't apply to you. They apply to us. They apply to our
Mm-hmm.
platform. And when they apply to our platform, we take them through a vetting process to make sure that, okay, cool, this person is really good. Like, what do we vet for? like we used to say, the vetting process used to be us. It used to be us reading through the CVs. Gone a little bit more sophisticated since then. You tell us what skills you're looking for, and then from there, we build a test. We didn't come up with this ourselves. What happened, and this is why it's so important to actually start your business and run it and get paying customers. One of our clients, very early on, they were looking for blog writers. And we're like, okay, cool, awesome. We'll find you blog writers. And so then they said, oh, we give the people an SEO multiple choice test to make sure that they can actually, And we're like, what? They're like, yeah, we tell them, go read this material, and then we give them a Google form multiple choice test. We literally took that and ran with it. Like, we now use now it's on the platform, but Google Forms, and it just tests multiple things. That's how they vet it. But we didn't just stick to SEO. We went like verbal and written communication. If you're a developer, like Vue or Node, whatever, and we're able to test all that stuff. You get the best people to then appear on your little shortlist. And then now you're like, okay, cool. These are the top 5 candidates out of the 600 that have applied. And then you click a button, you invite to interview. We've got an email, like scheduling tool on the platform. So you don't have to be like, hey, I'm available this time. You just say, these are the times I'm available. Like, it took us so long to be able to get there. But now that we've gotten there, we really do help you discover the talent and in the easiest way. But the most interesting thing has been there are a certain sector of people who we've been able to convince that, hey, look, this works. And they're like, great. And there are certain people who are like, I don't want to do this. And my product manager has like a really great term for that. He calls it schlep blindness. He says like people are blind to the schlep that they have to go in order to be able to fulfill the task that they want to do. And so one of the jobs that the sales team has to do, obviously the product team and the sales team has to work together. They have to kind of teach the person how to get over their schlep blindness, which is, it's an interesting thing that one has to go through. And I don't know if like the guys in the States have to do this or if it's just like a uniquely South African thing, but some people are just fine with the schlep. Only once they've used it, then they're like, oh, I'm never going back to the old way again. And it's an interesting like product thing that we've had to like kind of think about as we're building this thing.
Renier, a trend that's coming out of Bubu a lot, I'm hearing 2 main things for a South African founder to kind of really take home is keep that cash flow burn down by using no-code tools like Google Forms. I mean, if I had $10 for every time Bubu said Google Forms today, and then go focus on sales. It's like that is the formula for a South African founder.
Yeah, and even if that were the formula, it's still incredibly hard. so it's that's at least a way in which you burn the least amount of cash, and you reduce your risk and increase your chances of success substantially. So Google Forms is great. I've seen people build MVPs on WhatsApp, like a WhatsApp group, and posting events on there, and getting people to join. And joining the event is filling in a Google form. So it's really, if you dive into the essence of what the problem is, then you find it. And I think, we spoke about like, South Africans doing all of these things that they do overseas. I've got a term for it. I call it startup theater, where we do all of the things that go into being a startup, but it's actually not real. There's no substance behind it. And I don't think people have bad intentions when they do it. I mean, I've also been part of that, and sometimes I fall in that trap. But you go through the motions of certain things. You do your user tests, right? So you go through and you do your surveys and you chat to people, and they all go, "Yeah, we like this or this stuff," and you're doing all the stuff. You're ticking all the boxes, right? But when it comes down to it, it's like, are you solving a problem, and is that problem actually adding enough value? Solving of that problem, adding enough value that will generate the kind of income in an ongoing basis that could turn this into a business. And that's a really difficult thing to do. And in South Africa, it's particularly difficult because I love that you mentioned the schlep meter. What do you call it? Schlep
blindness.
Yeah, schlep blindness. And I think, something that is sad in South Africa, we've got these big corporates, and there's a lot of, respectfully, there's a lot of amazing people who work there, but there's a lot of dead wood in those companies as well. And that deadwood, they get paid to spend 8 hours a day. They don't get paid to do things efficiently and optimally. So if something takes them 4 hours to do, you come with a
That is true.
solution to go that can take it down to 10 minutes. What are you doing? You're actually doing them a disservice, because what the hell are they going to do for the other 4 hours? So it's those kind of things that's quite weird and unique in South Africa, where we have to get really creative and find, not only, you can have a great product, but if that product doesn't really tick some of the boxes that need to be ticked to be a successful product in South Africa, you're going to have a tough time convincing people to use it. Just go check how much Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel is still getting used in corporates today. Like, it's the biggest competitor to anything, any product, any SaaS product out there is freaking Excel. So, and people are not
Yep.
getting rid of it.
I had a boss who told me that. Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay,
very
so what
unique
I'd love to
challenges.
hear from you guys, is like, okay, so now we've spoken about, getting that proof of concept using no code tools and whatever. But now you have to, and again, talking about the South African ecosystem, we have to go sell to a business. So Bubu, Renier, either of you, what has worked? So you spoke earlier about the things that don't work, but what has worked? What kind of things have you used? What kind of strategies or tactics have you used to get B2B sales going? Like, how to get that traction going, to prove and get that sales funnel going?
Man, Renier, I'll quickly go first. Like, what we've seen, like what worked for us. We, and I can only speak for our industry, we really leveraged our networks in the beginning to give us like proof that, hey, look, this actually does work for people. Our first customers were like, colleagues or people within our network who we knew had the problem to be solved. It wasn't like a cold call. It wasn't like nothing like that. I mean, like, there's the whole thing, like, how do you get your first 10 customers? How do you first get your first 100 customers? How do you get your first 1,000 customers? And it is really true that the first customers you need to get are people within your network. It's not, and it's not giving it to for free. We did not give it for free because we believed that the product that we gave to them was really of like high quality. And in the beginning, yes, it wasn't sexy, but it was incredibly high touch. Like, incredibly high touch. Essentially, actually, we were consultants. That's what we were in the beginning. That's how we really got our first couple of people. And then once you've got the proof that, hey, look, this works, and you do it really well, those people will tell other people to use it. Word of mouth for the longest time for Jobox was our number one growth strategy. We did really good work for our one customer, then another customer would be like, hey, look, I know other people in my ecosystem that are looking to hire people. I'm going to call them and call them and call them. And we actually reached the point where word of mouth and repeat customers were our number one growth strategy. But then we said, it's limiting and we can't keep on growing this way. And then we kind of asked ourselves, are we going to keep trying to go for what we call elephants, or are we going to go for like the blue whales? So the blue whales were the large corporates, right? We did try go for the blue whales, and getting a meeting was really easy, just chatting a little bit about that again. But we found that the sales cycle time was just way too long. If you're going to try, and like, look, this is not uniquely South African. I know Paul Graham wrote an article about it as well. If you're going to go try and get a corporate to be one of like your early clients, you're going to die before they sign anything, before you even get the money into your bank account. So yeah, in the beginning, what we did was ignore blue whales, get friends and family to use your service, get colleagues to use your service, and just make sure that you gave them something so incredible that they want to talk about it. That's how we were able to grow.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree, Bubu. Like the early days, it's network, it's, finding, and it's the ability to actually network in the spaces where you have an ideal first client, which is not a corporate, which is like maybe a medium-sized business that is quite innovative and willing to try things. And to the point you just made, I'm really fascinated about this thing that, what it takes for someone to use your product is actually completely different to what it takes for someone to recommend your product. Right? So if you tell me about your product and you go, it solves X, Y, and Z problem, I might have that problem and I might go, cool, let me try it, right? If I don't like the product, there's maybe a bit of time wasted and financial risk, I lose a bit of money. However, if you ask me now to convince Bobby to use it, there's not a lot I can gain as opposed to the reputational risk I could face if Bobby comes back to me and says you wasted my time and my money, right? So it's a different psychology to get people to share stuff and recommend things than it is for people to try things. And I think when we design businesses and products and how we package everything, this is should be a major consideration. It's like, how do you not only get people to use it, but what are some things you can add to get them to want to tell other people about it, right? And quality of the product is good. Quality of service is really important in that space. Here's some of the obvious things. Obviously, people recommend people they had a good experience with, but then there's some other things which can be created. I mean, I remember when OfferZen started. Everybody knows the OfferZen T-shirts, right? But that was a really good move because they kind of stealthily launched this thing, and then some people got these boxes of T-shirts, and all of a sudden we were like, "Hey, have you checked out this OfferZen thing?" Right? So I think their example, a South African company, did really well to get people to want to recommend other people and want to get other people going. Which, like I said, is a different way of thinking. It's not only use my product; it's like get other people to use my product. And if we see more startups in South Africa getting that right, I think it's needed here because the market's so freaking small. You need someone to tell. You need the one customer to tell the other customer. So you can have 2 of the 10 customers that are available. Because otherwise, you can't survive that kind of thinking.
Cool. So we're going to wrap up unless there's any burning questions that you guys have for each other. Otherwise, I'm going to do a quick little something before we wrap up.
No, go ahead, Bobby.
I hear no objections. All right. It's fireside questions. Fireside questions, Bubu. And think of the first answer that comes to your head. Shut up. Don't think too hard about it. All right. Here's a couple of questions. Let's go. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. What is your favorite no-code tool that is not Google Forms?
So I would have said softer, but our product manager started using Glide, and whoa is all I can say. Glide is the one.
Is Glide like a WordPress? Is it like like software? You create websites with it. What is Glide quickly?
Yeah, Glide basically works like software. You build a database because I mean every startup is actually a database just made to visualize and look pretty. So you build a database and then you just put it to Glide and you can drag and drop things around. No coding skills needed whatsoever. Maybe a little bit of some Excel here and there and maybe some Airtable knowledge. But yeah, you just need that, and it connects your back end, which can be Excel, can be Google Sheets. You can get like super complicated and use SQL, but I mean, you need coding for that. So
okay, cool.
As long as you've got an Excel spreadsheet and you've got a little bit of some design knowledge, you can drag and drop things. That's what I mean by design knowledge. You're sorted. So Glide is the one.
Okay, cool. Next question, very quickly. You spoke about the lean startup. What other book would you recommend to a new founder?
Oh, that's such a good question.
What's made the most impact for you? Traction.
It's a book called Traction. Yeah.
Cool.
It's incredibly brilliant. Talks 19 different ways of how to build a startup. It's brilliant.
Cool. What industry do you think is going to disrupt the tech ecosystem? Is it blockchain or AI? Which one's going to have more disruption?
It's AI, because I've been hearing about blockchain for the last 10 years and it still hasn't done anything.
Really?
It's blockchain in AI or AI in blockchain.
Ooh.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Totally
I
agree with that.
I see you. We just now need NFTs and AI to like come together and then.
Oh no! Be
everything.
Careful. Let's gamify everything. Last question. What is your favorite podcast or newsletter that you're subscribed to?
Ooh, okay. Generally, I'm not just saying this because it's an open letter. Guys, it's fantastic. It is genuinely fantastic. I absolutely love a good laid out newsletter. I love a newsletter that makes me laugh. So the open letter is there. And I know my co-founder, mine, that he's an avid everyday reader. The open letter is fantastic.
You didn't pay him to say that, eh?
No,
No, no.
no payment. You know, guys, actually, you guys got us onto Beehive, eh? We're moving all our
Awesome.
newsletter stuff into Beehive because of like we're like, wait, how does this look so nice? Whoa, wait, and we're like, okay, cool, it's Beehive. There we go. So
Cool.
yeah.
We need to get paid for that though.
Yeah. And then last question, Bubu, your favorite meme, like the photo. If you think of a meme, what's that meme that stands out? Is it the kid? Is it the dog in the burning?
I think there's I have a folder on my phone of just memes. I've like 300 memes. So this is like a little bit of a tough one for me. But there's this one where like there's this young girl and there's a house burning in the background and she's looking at the camera and like she's got like this look on her face. That's like one of my favorite memes because I think that encapsulates startup life like in like a perfect snapshot.
That is startup life.
Cool. Perfect. I'm done. Renee, anything from your side?
No, all good, Bubu. This was awesome. Thanks for joining.
Nah, man, guys, thank you so much and keep up the good work, guys. Like we really need more South African podcasts. We need more South African newsletters. We just talking about startups. Like we need this. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
Thanks for joining, Bubu. Cool. Thanks, everyone.